Hi everyone, Farmer Kate here and welcome back to another educational video. Now in today's video we're going to be talking about crested geckos, which are a fascinating species, and helping me out is Snowy here. Now something I want to mention first of all is Snowy isn't the best example of what a healthy crested gecko looks like. So you'll probably be able to tell straight off his tail has got these curves in it, and that's what's called kinks. Now this is evidence of something called metabolic bone disease, and that's something he developed in his previous home. So like a lot of reptiles that live here with us, they're from a rescue centre, so we're never quite sure how well they're going to be looked after before coming to us. So metabolic bone disease is caused by not having access to the correct minerals and the correct lighting, most predominantly calcium and a few other things. So since Snowy's been with us, he's had access to all the stuff he needs to be healthy, but it's never going to get any better, but we can always prevent it from getting worse, which is like our main focus with him. So crested geckos, they're from an area called New Caledonia, which is an island, and that's the only place they're ever going to be found unless they're in captivity. In New Caledonia, there's lots of geckos like this, like Leachianus geckos and gargoyle geckos, so it's kind of like a really special place for geckos, really. Crested geckos are one of the smaller species, and in the wild, they'll be eating things like insects, lots of fruit. If they were to come across a small mammal or a small lizard, they're gonna eat that as well. They're not too fussy, but in captivity here with us, they have lots of insects like locusts, mealworms, and waxworms as some very special treats. And they mainly eat a special diet that's specifically designed for crested geckos. It's kind of like a paste mix we mix up in some water, and they absolutely love it. Now Snowy here is a boy. It's one of the animals you can tell a difference between a male and female, and that's kind of looking at that region right there. So he's got some bulges, and that's how we can tell he's a boy. But he's very lucky. He gets to live with two ladies here with us. He's lived with them for the most part of his life, really. They came together as a group here and they got on really, really well. In their enclosure, it's got to be fairly moist, so it's got to be quite high humidity, not too warm, because they're not a species of lizard that likes it too hot, like bearded dragons or something else. So we've got to be quite careful with all of his heating and lighting to make sure he's very well looked after. Isn't that right? An interesting fact about crested geckos is that they are one of the species of lizard that drops their tail. Now, the special word for that is called caudal autonomy, and that's when they can consciously release their tail to get away from a predator. So if a predator was to grab hold just there, he'd drop the tail, the predator will get a nice tasty meal because that tail will still be wiggling around, and it'll give him a chance to kind of run off and live another day. Now, crested geckos, unlike some other species like our Vietnamese golden geckos, won't then grow their tails back, so they'll be left without a tail for the rest of their life. So we do have a female that drops her tail before arriving with us, and she gets around just fine, maybe just a little bit slower than her friends, but that's something that can happen to crested geckos. They are quite sensitive, so it is quite common for pet crested geckos of her to drop the tail, even in a thing like a lightning storm, just from just the shock of a loud noise even. But I'm quite glad we've managed to keep Snowy's tail with him, even though it's kind of not the most perfect. I really hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about Snowy and our crested geckos here. Now, I'll be honest, we're kind of running out of reptiles to do some educational videos on, so we might have to do a few on maybe our invertebrates in the future, so you'll have to let us know if that's something you'll want to see. And from me and Snowy here, we hope you have a really good rest of your day, and we'll see you later. Bye.